What if the most dangerous criminal in American history never carried a weapon, never robbed a bank, and never spent a single day looking over his shoulder? What if the most devastating theft in human history was carried out with nothing more than a smile and a handshake?
And what if the people whose entire job was to stop him looked him dead in the eye and walked away? Stay with this story, because what you're about to hear will change the way you think about trust and money forever.
You meet Bernie Madoff first as a portrait most of the world already knew. Confident, buttoned up, a man who seemed to belong to a different breed of finance, polished, unflappable, the sort of person you imagine at the head of a boardroom table.
But the truth is grubby and intimate. Bernard Lawrence Madoff was born in Queens in 1938. He wasn't born into money. He wasn't handed a path. What he had, even as a young man, was an instinct for making people feel safe.
At 22, armed with $5,000 he saved working as a lifeguard and installing sprinklers, he started an investment firm. $5,000. Keep that figure in mind, because it's the seed of a system that would eventually enable a lie of staggering scale.
In the early years, the firm was legitimate. Madoff was bright, methodical, and he helped pioneer electronic trading, work that would lay part of the groundwork for the NASDAQ exchange. He wasn't just competent, he was credible. He served as NASDAQ's chairman 3 times. Celebrities, charities, banks, even governments invited him into their trust.
To them, he didn't just manage money, he managed certainty. That certainty was his product, and to sell certainty, he relied on 2 simple instruments: exclusivity and consistency.
He never advertised. He didn't need to. Investments came by referral, through country clubs, charity galas, private dinners. If Bernie agreed to take your money, you felt honored. You felt chosen. In a world where everyone peddled risk and volatility, Bernie promised the one thing most investors crave: steady, predictable returns.
Not eye-popping gains, not speculative leaps. 10 to 12% a year, year after year. Good markets, bad markets, crashes and recoveries, always the same. That sameness was the genius of the pitch. It wasn't sexy, it was soothing, and it made people stop asking the hard questions.
Because when someone gives you something that looks like stability as a fact, you don't always look under the hood. You start to believe that time itself is an ally, that reputation is an asset, and that the people recommending him, friends, other money managers, respected institutions, must have done the vetting for you.
Here's where the reality splits from the myth. On the upper floors of a Manhattan building, Bernie had a visible, legitimate trading arm. Brokers, computers, screens, an operation that looked and smelled like finance.
It was real. But somewhere else, quiet, low-slung, hidden, was the other side. A tiny, tight-knit team, fiercely loyal, who fabricated everything that clients saw. Account statements, trading histories, gains and losses.
None of the money in the advisory accounts was ever traded the way investors believed. The returns were conjured on paper, month after month, decade after decade. This is a Ponzi on a scale you can scarcely imagine. New money coming in was used to pay old investors who wanted out. That would have worked, in theory, if the entire world hadn't eventually demanded their money back at once.
To understand how a scheme like this could last 40 years, you have to understand 3 psychological and structural forces working together: reputation, referral networks, and plausible returns. Reputation is a remarkable kind of armor. When prominent institutions and well-known people vouch for someone, the rest of the market relaxes.
And Madoff cultivated that armor with precision. He was on committees, he gave speeches, he chaired NASDAQ, he donated to charities, he sat at galas. All of that trustworthiness clutter obscured the absence of transparency.
Referrals created a feedback loop. Wealthy people tend to move in the same circles. One happy investor told another. Wealth managers introduced their clients. Feeder funds, middlemen who funneled other people's money into Madoff's firm, simplified the process. Nobody saw the fine print because nobody wanted to. Exclusivity meant fewer prying eyes. And the returns themselves were just good enough to be believable. 10 to 12% is not miraculous. It's achievable by a careful, conservative investor. When you promise a miracle, people get suspicious. When you promise steady, respectable gains, people relax. That normalcy masked the impossibility beneath. Because beneath the pretty statements were mathematical impossibilities. In 1999, a financial analyst named Harry Markopolos, a problem solver by trade, sat down with Madoff's published numbers. He ran the calculations and within 4 hours concluded these returns could not possibly be real. Not with the trading patterns Madoff claimed, not with the market conditions, not under any honest circumstances.
Markopolos didn't whisper his concern, he shouted it to the authorities. He filed detailed reports with the Securities and Exchange Commission, calling out Madoff by name. He explained in painstaking detail why the figures were impossible. Over the next 9 years, he kept pushing. He produced mathematical proofs.
He named feeder funds. He laid out the logic. The SEC looked, and then they looked away. The SEC's failure wasn't a single cosmic error. It was a collection of missed steps and bad instincts. Investigators accepted surface explanations. They were reassured by the firm's reputation and institutional connections. They didn't probe the trading in the kind of depth Markopolos asked for. They didn't subpoena the right documents. They didn't connect the dots between the advisory business and the firm's other arms.
In short, the system that was supposed to stop fraud was wearing blinders. For a long time, this worked. Money flowed in. Papers were printed. Statements arrived in the mail with neat columns and reassuring decimals.
People went about their lives, trusting in the unspoken assumption that somebody, somewhere, competent and powerful, had inspected the books. Then, in 2008, the world changed. The global financial crisis hit like an earthquake. Markets cratered. Panic spread. Investors, frightened, wanted their cash.
Withdrawals surged. Feeder funds faced redemption requests. The system that hid the lack of real asset backing started to creak. By December 2008, the math collapsed into a single, unavoidable truth. Withdrawal requests amounted to $7 billion. Madoff had 300 million available.
7 billion requested. 300 million on hand. There is a point when a lie of any size can no longer be papered over by newer lies. That point had arrived. On December 9th, 2008, Bernie Madoff did something many of his victims couldn't imagine. He called his sons, Mark and Andrew, into his Manhattan apartment. In a calm voice, he told them the truth. The advisory business was a sham. It had always been a sham. There was no money. It was one big lie.
Imagine the surreal collapse of a family dynasty condensed into that moment. The men who had built their identity around their father's success realized they were living inside a fabrication. They took the only course they could. They contacted a lawyer. The next morning, the sons turned their father in to federal authorities. On December 11th, federal agents knocked on Madoff's door. He answered. When asked if there was any innocent explanation, he said simply, "No." He was arrested, calm and composed, charged with 11 counts: fraud, money laundering, perjury, theft. He pled guilty to all of them. In June of 2009, Bernie stood before a judge and heard his sentence: 150 years in federal prison. He was 71. The courtroom contained dozens of victims, elderly people who had watched retirement plans, life savings, legacies vanish overnight. Charities that supported the sick and the poor found their endowments wiped out. Foundations, arts organizations, and community programs collapsed. People who had trusted a proven name faced ruin. The human cost is difficult to summarize without sounding clinical, but here are the facts that claw at you. Roughly $65 billion was lost in the scheme, though the number has been debated because some of that sum reflects paper gains rather than real cash that ever existed. 37,000 investors were affected in some way. Lives were rearranged, plans erased, families displaced. The damage rippled beyond bank accounts into mental health, relationships, careers, and community programs that never recovered. The personal toll within Madoff's own family was devastating and tragic in different ways. Mark Madoff, the son who had helped bring his father to authorities, died by suicide exactly 2 years after the arrest. Andrew Madoff died of cancer in 2014. Bernie himself died in prison on April 14, 2021, at the age of 82, having served 12 years of his sentence, never fully explaining why he did it, and never providing the remorse many victims demanded. So how did this happen for so long? How do you let someone steal tens of billions for 40 years and call it a business? Part of the answer is structural. Gaps in regulation, siloed oversight, and the trusting nature of human social networks. But the more unsettling answer is psychological. People who are admired are rarely examined. When reputation becomes your shorthand for competence, curiosity declines. Everyone in the chain bears a measure of responsibility. The feeder funds who redirected vast amounts of capital, the auditors and accountants who signed off on internal records, the banks that permitted transfers without deeper scrutiny, the regulators who failed to demand the kind of forensic verification Markopolis requested. But the core engine was human trust. Trust is what allowed Bernie to operate without the usual alarms going off.
That's not to excuse individual failings. It's to recognize how social dynamics, incentives, and perceived authority can conspire to blind even experienced professionals. There's another lesson baked into the story: the danger of plausibility. The most convincing lies often mimic truth in the right ways, just enough detail, just the right tone. Madoff didn't promise the impossible, he promised the believable, and he surrounded that promise with an aura of legitimacy.
He taught us that con artists don't always sell fantasy. Sometimes they sell perfectly ordinary steadiness, and that steadiness can be the perfect disguise.
And yet, the scandal left lasting reforms. The SEC underwent investigations and criticism that led to changes, restructured oversight, better whistleblower mechanisms, and a painfully relearned lesson about the need for skepticism at institutional levels. Victims' funds were recovered to an extent through restitution efforts and clawback suits. Irving Picard, the court-appointed trustee, worked tirelessly to recover and redistribute assets to defrauded investors, recovering billions from those who had profited by withdrawing funds earlier. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't enough for everyone, but it was an effort to impose some measure of justice after a long delay.
When you step back from the headline numbers and the courtroom drama, what sticks is how ordinary the mechanism looked. A desk, a ledger, a signature, a handshake at a banquet, a nod from a well-known leader. It shows how fragile systems become when people substitute reputation for verification.
So when you think about Madoff, don't only think of a villain. Think of a cautionary tale about social proof, institutional complacency, and how easy it is to confuse familiarity with safety. Think about the small ways we outsource our judgment, trusting an endorsement, assuming a brand name equals quality, deferring to a reputation without demanding evidence.
And ask yourself, who else is out there, right now, doing exactly the same thing? The question doesn't have a comfortable answer. It requires constant curiosity and institutional vigilance. It requires asking the hard questions, even when society nudges you to trust.
Before we go, let's hold a moment for the human beings caught in this story. Not the headlines, the people. Grandparents who lost pensions, charities that failed, communities that lost support. Their names aren't in the footnotes of history. Their circumstances changed overnight.
That's the salient moral cost of fraud. It reorders ordinary lives. There's a final wrinkle that makes this tale almost unbearably relevant. The tools and venues of deceit change, but the human vulnerabilities they exploit do not. Technology may alter the instruments, algorithms, crypto, high-speed trading, but if you lean on status signals as a proxy for due diligence, you leave the door open.
Next week, we'll go deeper into another company that used status, charisma, and plausible innovation to devastating effect. Enron used buzzwords, market optimization, asset-light strategies, innovation to mask accounting tricks that destroyed thousands of jobs and erased billions in shareholder value.
It's a darker corporate cousin to the Madoff story, and it teaches us about perverse incentives inside corporations and the thin line between aggressive accounting
and outright fraud.
For now, carry this with you. Trust is powerful and necessary, but it is not a substitute for verification. When someone sells you consistency as an absolute, ask to see the gears.
When institutions reassure you, remember that institutions are run by people, not infallible machines. And when a single person seems too authoritative, let skepticism be your companion.
If there's a single lasting image from the Madoff saga, it's this: a man who could look his sons in the eye and confess the truth. Two worlds converging in a single apartment. The confession didn't come with a dramatic chaser. It came quietly, and it collapsed in empire.
That moment shows how fragile constructed realities are. All it ever takes is a crack. You've just heard the story of how reputation, social networks, and human complacency allowed one of the most destructive financial crimes in history to grow unchecked for decades.
It's a lesson, a warning, and an invitation to be more deliberate about where you place your trust. Stick around next week. Enron waits, and the ways corporate America hid reality behind glossy language will surprise you. Until then, keep your questions close and your assumptions closer.